Super Paper Mario and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door are some of my favorite games of all time. The wacky and weird scenarios, charming stories, and unique visual style make these games really stand out. Additionally, the soundtracks to these games are some of the most memorable from my childhood. Super Paper Mario is kind of the odd third child of the original Paper Mario games. It has a vastly different visual style and different gameplay mechanics, and does away with the RPG turn-based style battle system. The musical score is no exception. There's actually 3 entirely different composers for each game. What I plan to do in this video is sit down and compare the soundtracks for these games side by side. What different techniques and styles did the composers use, and how do these different soundtracks complement these 2 very different games? Probably the best way to start off with a comparison is by looking at the brief tune that plays at the opening of both games. In The Thousand-Year Door, we learned the history of Rogueport and the lost treasure that lies beneath the city. This piece has this constant descending arpeggio in the bass that really drives it forward and clearly outlines the chord progressions. It's a slow-moving, simple but powerful piece that really sets the stage for the mystery and fairy tale aesthetic central to the game's story. One criticism I have is that it is fairly repetitive and predictable, although this could be seen as purposeful to again establish that simple fairy tale-like theme, to have that motif get stuck inside your head so you remember it throughout the game. The intro theme for Super Paper Mario is not all that different. It details the Dark Prognosticus, a book of power that revealed portents of the future and was sealed away long ago. This piece has that same marching forward motion as that of Thousand-Year Door's intro, but it's a bit more unpredictable. The main melody doesn't always start at the beginning of a measure, and on occasion there is a measure cut short, creating a subtly unpredictable, although not unpleasant, hiccup in the rhythm, as you can see here. Although this does make it harder to follow or hum along to, which is different from Thousand-Year Door's straightforward and memorable intro. The instrumentation between these 2 songs is slightly different as well. While both themes favor traditional orchestral instruments, Super Paper Mario tweaks their sound a little. The piano sounds kind of tinny and far away, and the bells that outline the main melody are tweaked so that, like the decay and the reverb from the previous note, are cancelled or silenced when a new note comes in. Giving it like a toy-like sound or synthetic quality. Just listening to these 2 pieces, we can identify a lot of subtle differences in the styles of these soundtracks that are reflected throughout the games. Let's delve into the differences between the sound banks for these games a little more closely by looking at the Hooktail battle theme for the first chapter in the Thousand-Year Door. This piece has a traditional set of orchestral instruments at hand, with strings, timpani, piano, and brass all present. But there's a lot of synth mixed in here too. Electric bass, piano, guitar, saws and square waves, and even some falling sound effects are all present in this song. Then there's also effects like phases and filtering. That lends a more gamey or retro feel to the soundtrack and makes it more interesting. Now here is the battle theme for Fractail, the analogous dragon-like boss in the first chapter of Super Paper Mario. Right off the bat, we hear these odd marcato strings and flute-like instrument that sounds a bit affected or filtered. There are a lot of underlying voices playing concurrent to the main melody. Like you can hear these weird record scratching sound effects, this muted synth that kind of makes this noise, and a lot of different beeps and boops. The sound of the song isn't necessarily synthetic or electronic, but it is clearly more filtered and toy-like compared to Hooktail's battle theme. I feel this is a choice made to reflect the more plasticky and 2D nature of Fractale over the kind of paper and cardboard feel of Hooktail. Looking at rhythm next, Super Paper Mario offers a lot more complexity over 1,000 Year Door. You could probably tell that the Hooktail battle song was easier to follow along with or tap your foot to. It maintains the same beat and 4/4 time signature throughout the piece. Although towards the end, most of the instruments disappear, and for a brief period it feels like we're in this empty place without something to count along with. On the other hand, Fractale is split into several rhythmic sections. So the first section has these syncopated strings in 4/4 time. The second section feels really quick and wandering, but maintains the same 4/4 time signature. Now the third briefly switches to 3/4 times with these marcato strings again. And then there's this transitionary measure, and we're back into the second section. A lot of other pieces in this game have the same level of rhythmic variety. The mini-boss battle theme is another good example with its syncopated and jumpy melody. One technique I really love that Super Paper Mario makes use of is melodic leitmotif. Foes will have themes that are rearranged when you battle them. Some between chapter tracks are elaborated and made more complex as you progress through the game, and even small motifs from one piece are inserted in various others. For example, the opening bars of Flipside are present in both the game intro and the chapter intro. Now the most prominent use of this is with Count Black's catchy and ever-present theme, which is quickly ingrained into your memory by the sheer number of times that it is used, in 6 songs last time I counted, which means this guy owns 5% of the entire soundtrack. A less prominent example that I really like is the theme for the character known as Mimi. We first hear the theme for this evil child in the middle of Chapter 2. You see that it's presented simply in 4/4 time and easy to follow along with. And it has this quick pitch bend on these already high-pitched strings, which gives it this kind of mawkish and childish air about it, as if someone's throwing a tantrum. But then when she later turns into an invincible monster, her theme is twisted into 6/4 time. It's presented without any pauses and it sounds a lot more threatening and continuous, like you're being hunted down relentlessly. Much later in the game, you battle her again, and these two versions are then combined along with some use of glitchy sound effects, added harmonic dissonance, and filtering to create something much more serious and distorted than the previous two. Motifs are definitely less of a presence in the 1,000 Year Door. There are a few characters whose main theme appears in their battle. but there isn't the kind of wacky and interesting variation like there is in Super Paper Mario. They also just aren't presented as often. For instance, there's the one song here near the end of the game which uses the opening theme, which we heard earlier in the video. But this opening theme isn't presented anywhere else in the game, I don't believe. So by the end of the game, you've kind of forgotten it a little bit. I think it would have been cool to have used this same theme when you got a crystal star or when you first opened the 1,000-year door to remind the player of it and make it more important and memorable. So from the examples I've given, it might seem like I'm harping a bit much on praise for Super Paper Mario's soundtrack. It does have a more interesting sound make, complex rhythmic techniques, and more use of leitmotif. But all of these may not always be good things. For one, this more complex music makes the pieces less memorable. Conversely, although some of the music in 1,000-Year Door may be repetitive and simple, this aids in its ability to be remembered and recalled. For example, it's easier to hum the piece from memory. A great example is the music for the locations known as the Bitlands. Which are the setting of Chapter 3 in Super Paper Mario. The open plains, tile pool, and Fort Francis all have interesting and unique themes, but I find them hard to remember and hum along with. Fort Francis especially. Take a listen to this. Okay, now try to hum that section back out loud. I bet it's a little difficult, right? This piece has a wandering melody with a lot of syncopation that doesn't conform to the 3/4 timing of the measure, giving it a halting, stumbling feel. This is really cool, but it makes it difficult to predict and follow along with. Now compare this song to the song that plays in Hooktail's Castle from 1,000-Year Door. Okay, now try to hum this part back out loud. Can you recall more of it than the previous one? This piece is slower and more predictable. The melody adheres to the march-like timing and has more repeated sections. Now, despite Hooktail Castle being less interesting than Fort Francis, there are no robot maids or kitty lasers, I find this music more memorable and effective at conveying the haunting and ominous mood of this fortress. There are other examples of music like this where the simpler, more thematic pieces of 1,000-Year Door convey the settings well, whereas the cartoony and wacky music of Super Paper Mario can just be confusing and blend in with each other. Take the score for Boggly Woods from the 1,000-Year Door. This piece consists entirely of these 4 bars, and bars 2 to 4 are variations on the first one, which features these ascending fourth intervals. So really, there's only a single bit of original music right here, and the rest is variation. But this is what makes this piece so special. The bare-bones melody, the odd 10/4 time signature, and the use of empty space and long pauses give this piece its unique feeling of emptiness and ethereal beauty, which perfectly matches the style of Boggly Woods. Looking at Super Paper Mario, there really aren't any similar songs that achieve the same effect. Even some of the more serious pieces have this wackiness to them that don't really evoke softness or quietness, like the piece that plays in the empty world. So what can we really say about these two soundtracks? Well, 1,000-Year Door goes for a more traditional and restrained style of music, it seems. There is a lot of synth and foley in the score, but it has a traditional orchestral flavor to it that shines through. It has some weird pieces here and there, but most of it is simplistic and easy to follow, with much of its charm hidden in subtle techniques and pieces that characterize the exotic locations of the game. Super Paper Mario is more in-your-face when it comes to music. Its sound bank is noisy and toy-like, with many pieces employing spectacular rhythmic variation and some clever use of leitmotif. It focuses less on establishing mood and characterizing locations than it does on having fun and showcasing the wacky and wild situations the character find themselves in. Again, I love both of these soundtracks for many different reasons, and I hope that I covered each of them in sufficient depth. There's a ton of minutia in the styles of music for these games, and I'd love to hear any examples that anyone has to offer in the comments.